This week in Verse by Verse Bible Study, we take a continuing look at Isaiah's visions. We will hear of the greatness of God, his love for Israel, and disdain for idols.
Okay, today we're going to be talking about Isaiah 40 through 41, and that turned out to be a lot of chapters, but there's a lot in it. As usual, when I looked at it the first time, I thought, there's nothing in here. It's kind of, the chapters are repeats of each other. Well, there's a reason for that. Well, also, when you start digging into it, you realize there's a lot of stuff in there. Sometimes this thing is so chock full of God's knowledge and what he wants you to know, you have to pick and choose what you want to relay. This is Isaiah's vision. I want you to understand that this is all a vision. Isaiah here will be looking forward about 150 years to when King Cyrus frees the exiles from Babylon and sends them back home to Canaan. And he's also looking forward to the time of Christ. And he's also looking forward to the end times. So, and he didn't tell you when he changed his thought. We'll have to kind of figure that out ourselves. But I want you to be keeping these things in mind. This is a vision. And there's 3 different time periods he's looking forward to. So, but it also relates to us on an individual basis, all of this. So, Isaiah 41 through 2. Let me just read that. Comfort, yes, comfort my people, says your God. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. Just to give you a little context, Isaiah began prophesying around 740 BC and he continued until 641 BC. Here he's looking forward to Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. Later he'll be looking forward to the exiles' return from Babylon 150 years in the future. And the voice here in this is Isaiah's. And there's going to be 3 different voices in the first eight verses here. So I'll try to separate them all out so you know what they're talking about. Comfort is a word that shows God's ultimate kindness and tenderness toward the Canaanites. Okay, and that's why he uses that word. Now they're going through a lot right now, right? So he's trying to, everybody thinks, well, he's an angry God. No, he loves the Canaanites. He just needs to correct them sometimes. This is a voice of encouragement and not admonition. He's given hope to the hopeless or people who are paralyzed by fear. And we've all been there. We have situations in life where we don't move forward because we're afraid to do something that might make it worse. God's instructing Isaiah to speak directly, which is to Jerusalem's heart. And that word there is tenderly. That's what that means. And give them comfort that their forgiveness has been and or will be accomplished. Receive from the Lord's hand double for all their sins. Anybody got an idea what that means? Doesn't sound good, does it? It isn't. Isaiah is using an old Eastern custom to announce it to Israel as a nation that the death and resurrection of her Messiah, all her debt has been fully paid. Now, this is still going to happen 750 years in the future, but he's telling them it's going to happen and you'll be forgiven. And the custom is a debtor note on the door of somebody who owes money. And what would happen if somebody owed money and told the person that loaned them the money they couldn't pay it? They would go nail a note to the person's door that owed money and said, this person doesn't pay his debts. But if somebody came by and paid that guy's debt, they would take the note and leave it on the door, but they would fold it up and put another nail in it, right? Paid. So everybody would know this guy, his debt has been paid. And so that's a symbol of what Jesus does for us at the cross. This is kind of neat because it kind of redeems the guy who didn't pay his bill, and that's a picture of Christ and what he's done for us. Okay. Isaiah 43 through 5. So could somebody read that? And this is foretelling what John the Baptist and what he said about himself. Somebody want to read that?
Voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain, and the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all people will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken.
Somebody want to read John 1:23 just for comparison?
John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, I am the voice of one calling in the desert, make straight the way of the Lord.
Okay. So this is Isaiah using almost the exact words 750 years before John the Baptist. So it's pretty impressive, I think. The stuff about make straight in the desert a highway for our God. There's a couple of meanings for this, but you read it and you go, "What? I guess I understand that." But here's it. In Isaiah's time, which would have been 750 years before Christ, roads were few. When a king traveled, a road would be leveled and made so he could travel in comfort. He wouldn't have to go down a muddy road or a rough road. I've seen a map recently, and it says all roads lead to Rome, and they truly do in Europe. They really do. Everything. It's like a
hub.
It's a hub. Yeah, it's the big hub. The road he's referring to here is the road that needs to be built in the heart of the Israelites to receive God in the form of Jesus. All flesh refers to the end times. In other words, everybody that is there in the end times is going to see God. So now he's looking forward again to the end times, to Christ's kingdom. The revelation of God's glory is one of the key concepts of this book. Okay, just remember that. Okay, this is an additional valid interpretation, reconstruction. Every valley is lifted up, exalted. In our lowest and most discouraged time, there will be comfort and encouragement from God. So we're talking about a spiritual reconstruction here as part of road building. Every mountain will be brought down. Our egos, boasts, and pride will be cut down. The crooked places shall be made straight and the rough smooth. Our deviousness will be corrected. We won't cheat on our taxes, and we will report our income, if there is such a thing in the end time. And again, this is for the end times, and it's guaranteed and already accomplished. And the last thing they say in here is, "For the mouth of the Lord has spoken." That's your guarantee. They use this process to build roads even to this day. The Romans were outstanding road builders. Most of their roads still exist in some form or fashion. Isaiah 40, 6-8. Would somebody please read that?
A voice says, "Cry out." And I said, "What shall I cry?" All the people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever.
The first thing is the voice said, "Cry out," and that was God. And he said, "What shall I cry?" That was John the Baptist. Okay, and then the Lord takes over again. All flesh is grass. We're perishable. We can't accomplish in our own methods and our own means what we need to accomplish, but God through Jesus Christ has accomplished it for us. Okay, so he's offering a solution and hope. But the word of our God stands forever. Again, that's your reassurance that God's accomplished all we need. Verses 3-8 define the ministry of John the Baptist 700 years in the future, and verses 1-8 basically follow a theme of reconciliation, reconstruction, and reassurance. So God is reconciling with Israel. He's reconstructing them. They have to reconstruct themselves mentally, physically, spiritually to receive him. And then he gives them reassurance that he's going to be there with them. And because he said so, everything's going to be good and put right. It's kind of hard when you sit there and you're going day to day and you kind of forget God's watching me and God's with me and God's got a plan for me. You can forget that real easy, especially when you're doing what you're not supposed to be doing.
It's his time.
Yeah, and that's an important point to come up.
That's a hard one. We want it now.
I think that's why the Israelites and us have so much problem remembering it, because they're going through all these things, the Babylonian captivity. Why aren't you fixing this? And they don't understand. It's in his time. He put you there because you did something wrong. He's going to keep you there long enough to understand that you did wrong. Okay. It's not your opinion, not your time. It's his time. Good point. Good point.
And Kevin, when we're witnessing to people or talking to people that don't, especially family members who don't really know the Lord, we have to remember that so many of the things that we have come to believe of eternity, of life after death, of all of that, is not their experience.
Mm-hmm.
They are linear beings that have not experienced something beyond what they can see.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bible tells us focus on the invisible, the spiritual verses. And I think that's just a really important thing to remember when you're talking to somebody who doesn't believe, who doesn't know the Lord, is that his ways are different than our ways.
Yeah.
And it's hard to wrap your brain. It's hard to wrap my brain around that now.
Yeah.
What does that all look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the concepts that we come to embrace and we understand, and some of us from childhood, some of us from adulthood. They're going to be alien to a lot of people in the culture that have never been exposed to God. So but you got to bring the subject up.
Yeah.
You may be who exposes them to these concepts. But think about it. The concept of substitutional death, the concept of eternity, the concept that you're going to live somewhere and it's going to be one of two places. You're going to live somewhere eternally. Just these are all concepts that are really difficult for your average person to understand. Okay, Isaiah 49, behold your God. Somebody want to read 9?
You who bring good tidings to Zion, go up on a high mountain. You who bring good tidings to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with a shout. Lift it up, do not be afraid. Say to the towns of Judah, here is your God.
Yeah, and he's actually talking about Isaiah, but he's also talking about those who believe will go up there. So it's kind of got a double meaning there. Okay, he's telling them what they got to do following reconciliation, reconstruction, and reassurance. Now, okay, you've got these things. Now, what do? You go up on the mountaintop and you tell people what you believe and you tell them to behold their own God. If you've been changed, you must be a witness to what God has done for you. That's the most important thing we can do. That's our job. And individually, but it's also, he's talking to Israel. Do not tell what God can do for a person. If you will be saved, God will do this for you. No, don't tell them that. That's brain knowledge. That's scripture memorization. But unfortunately, it's the way we train people to witness a lot of times. Here's what you got to do. You have a story. Each and every one of you has a story about how you came to know God. So tell somebody what God has done for you and how it changed you. That's the way to witness. Okay. So otherwise it's kind of brain knowledge and it's kind of get something for giving something. So Jesus said, behold, I send you to be witnesses, not to do witnessing. Be a witness. Don't perform witnessing and tell them what God's going to do for them. Did I make myself clear on that?
It's an interesting thought because being a witness means you're living out your story and you're sharing that with other people, which is very natural.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to witness is trying to do something from a third party objective.
That's exactly what I'm. Yeah.
That is, it just doesn't come across as authentic.
It's not a to-do list.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
everybody's.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Check all these boxes and you're going to receive God. No, you receive God because he put it on your heart. So, and changed your life. Okay, Isaiah 40, 10 through 11. Somebody want to read that?
See, the sovereign Lord comes with power, and he rules with a mighty arm. See, his reward is with him, and his recompense accompanies him. He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms. He carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young.
Two different versions or visions of God here, isn't it? He's a judge and he's a shepherd. Okay, and this is God's voice speaking now, by the way. Behold, the Lord God will come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. His reward is with him, and his work is before him. Okay, that's the judge part. The shepherd is all about lambs and flocks, and he'll gather them in his arm and bosom and take them and lead them. Okay, so two different visions of God. Isaiah 40, 18 through 25. These will repeat what he's saying. Verse 18 is, let's see if I got that. Yeah. To whom will you liken to God? And verse 25 is, or what likeness will you compare it to him? Verse 25 is, to whom will you then liken me? Or to whom shall I be equal? And he's going to confront the idols. Isaiah is, and at God's urging, he's going to confront the people who worship idols. Okay. And he's going to ask him in that case, which one of you is equal to me? Yeah. And he's going to even go farther. He's going to say, do good or evil. What he's saying there is, do something, do anything. Prove to me that you are a God. Prove to me that you do anything. Okay, but we'll get into that a little bit more detail. Isaiah 40:12. Can you do what I do? Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand and measured heaven with a span? Span is the width of a hand. Calculated the dust of the earth in a measure, and weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance. Okay, these are all, you read them and you go, what is it? What are they talking about? Well, we know that science can measure maybe the amount of grains on a beach, but it's really probably not as accurate as God can do it. I'm pretty sure. Okay, but he's measured heaven with a span of his hand. Okay, and calculated the dust of the earth in a measure. Okay, I thought immediately of Job 38:39,
Yeah.
which we don't have time to read, but mark that and read it sometime this afternoon, because he's like, can you do what I do? Where were you when I was making this place?
Kevin, there's a great joke.
Yeah.
That a scientist came to God and said, I can make a man.
Yeah.
And God said, okay, show me. So he reaches down and picks up some dirt, and God goes, no, make your own dirt.
I like that.
Okay, Isaiah is asserting that the Lord is unique. All these idols are not equal to him. In fact, they aren't even really, they're not even gods. They're just somebody's figment of his imagination or whatever. Although he asked them to speak, he asked them to tell what they prophesied and how that turned out for them and all that. So, but Isaiah is asserting that the Lord is unique. He's the only God with no pantheon of other gods. You know, the Romans, the Greeks, they all had explanations of gods to take care of nature and events and all that. God doesn't need all that. He's got it all in his hands. Okay. Even today, God's ability to measure creation is vastly superior to man's ability to measure the universe. And I know there's some really bright people out there, and they can measure how far it is to this star and maybe how many grains of sand on this particular beach. But I sit there and start thinking about that. There's too many variables in that. You know, how deep does the sand go here? And over here, 5 inches, it may go down another foot. You know,
There's no one to disprove them.
yeah. Isaiah 40:13-14. Can somebody read that?
Who can fathom the spirit of the Lord, or instruct the Lord as his counselor? Whom did the Lord consult to enlighten him, or who taught him the right way? Who was it that taught him knowledge or showed him the path of understanding?
Yeah. And the answer, of course, is nobody. It's all him. He always has known it, and he's known everything. And this whole thing is kind of sarcastic. You got to feel like Isaiah really made himself unpopular sometimes. You ever had a problem or issue in your life that you laid out a plan to resolve it, and no matter how hard you worked, it just didn't seem to be getting resolved?
Mm-hmm.
But then you turned it over to God,
Yeah.
and why didn't I see that? It's because God's looking at it a completely different perspective, and then he's resolving it in a different perspective. He knows all the variables. He knows all the people who are going to be affected by your decision. He knows all the situations that are going to be affected by your decision. So, okay, we're capable of seeing all the variables that God does and how they affect hundreds, thousands, millions of people and situations over days, years, decades, centuries, millennia. Indeed, he knows all the variables that are going to occur from creation to eternity. Okay. And that's unfathomable to think about, but he does. Okay, but that's the point of the 13 and 14. 15-17, somebody want to read that?
Surely the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They are regarded as dust on the scales. He weighs the islands as though they were fine dust. Lebanon is not sufficient for altar fires, nor its animals enough for burnt offerings. Before him, all the nations are as nothing. They are regarded by him as worthless and less than nothing.
Yep. Okay. Now we're seeing there's a turn here from the cosmos to human history. And we've seen in the previous chapters that God uses the nations to enforce his will and to make what he wants happen. And that's what he's starting to talk now. The whole of the natures are a drop in the bucket. They're not significant except for Israel. Okay. And are counted as small dust on the scales. In other words, that dust, which when you use a scale is not even significant enough to influence the measurement. Okay. And look, he lifts up the isles as a very little thing. The isles are all the countries on the ends of the earth. In this case, Egypt and Scythia, I believe. But he says they have nothing. Lebanon is not sufficient to burn. In other words, there's not enough trees in Lebanon, which is funny because that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
There's not enough trees in Lebanon to burn all the animals, and there's not sufficient animals to sacrifice to God. Okay, so Lebanon, even though they appear powerful, they're not they're nothing. All nations before him is nothing. And the word worthless goes back to the word for chaos. I'm sorry. So at the beginning of time, at the beginning of creation. Okay. And again, we're going to talk about this. What kind of God are we talking about? 18. Whom will you liken to God? Or what likeness will you compare to him? That's kind of funny. How do you know to make a likeness when you don't know what he looks like? We can't comprehend. Moses was the only one that ever had a shot of him, and then God was turning his back on him because he knew that Moses couldn't bear to see him. So, okay. Verse 25, to whom will you then liken me? Or to whom shall I be equal? And this is going to come up several times here. 19 through 26. Somebody?
As for an idol, a metal worker casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold and fashions silver chains for it. A person too poor to present such an offering selects wood that will not rot. They look for a skilled worker to set up an idol that will not topple. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground, than he blows on them and they wither, and a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty significant picture, isn't it? He's starting in to talk about the worship of idols. He's talking about princes who think they're greater than they are. But let's talk about it a little. These verses are declaring the greatness of God, the weakness of princes and leaders, and the utter uselessness of idols. He really hates idols. I think we've got that across in all these lessons. And it's, why does he hate idols? Well, if you were going to make an idol of God, what would you use? Because he transcends the physical world. So nothing in the physical world could be used to make an idol of God. And it's funny because I'll show you, somebody tried to make an idol of God. So anyway, let's go on. Okay, verses 19 through 20. Isaiah is really kind of laughing here. How would you depict God by making an idol out of earthly material? My point that I just made. But he's kind of laughing at it there. Matter of fact, it's funny to prepare a carved image that will not totter. It's a god. Do gods totter? Oh, you must not be a god then. Okay. And he references the silver chains, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. Verses 21. Have you not known? Have you not heard? We've seen so many instances of this with Israel, but we see it in our own life too. People hear the word, hear the gospel, but they don't really embrace it or take it to heart. So it's reminiscent of Isaiah 6, 9 through 10. It's possible to hear and not embrace what you've been told. And that's the world, unfortunately.
You know, Kevin, my feeling is that, everybody says we haven't seen God, but I think he walks among us. We just don't know it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't get corny here. I think God walks among us. I think his angels walk among us. I think many of us have had encounters and don't have any idea. And it's just the way God works. And I can tell you, Nancy and I were coming back from dinner one night. It was dark out, and we were coming up Hillcrest from, I think we were eating at the Italian where this 25, 30 years ago. And we were coming across, and the light turns green. And we were the second car to go north on Hillcrest through Northwest Highway. And all of a sudden, a speeding car was right at Nancy's window. I mean, we could
see the lights.
We could see, and the next thing you know, we were 20 feet up the road on Hillcrest. And we both went, what just happened?
Yeah.
And
God.
I have no idea. I mean, I have no doubt that God took and tucked our car forward,
And no one got hit.
and nobody got hit.
Just one last thought. that I just realized that last part when it talks about God creating the stars
Mhm.
and he called them out by name.
Mhm.
In that time period, the name was the character
Mhm.
of something.
Mhm.
So if you think about what that means, it means he called them out by name, and the name he used would determine the character of that star.
Yeah.
And I mean, that to talk about the depth of God,
Yeah.
it's amazing to think how his power is just beyond anything we can
Yeah.
perceive.
Yeah. One of the things I read in the commentary that reminded me of back in the ancient world, if you could name something, that gave you power over it. Okay. And that's what they believed. Okay. Well, God knows the name of every star. And that'll figure here in the Babylonian worship here in a few minutes. But you're right. God knows every star, what their name is. And he uses the word host and number. Those are both military terms for armies and large gatherings of military men. 19 through 26, we go on. There's a lot of stuff here. The circle of the earth, that's kind of unknown what that means to the commentators, are unsure everything I read. But it may refer to the horizon of the earth that God would see from his viewpoint. It may refer to the vault of heaven, the covering over it, and that he spreads out to protect his creation. They'd look like his earthly creations would look like tiny grasshoppers from his vantage point. Plus, it points out that they're tiny and they're small compared to God. Okay, so that's what he's referring to there. It's interesting. This canopy will be ripped away someday to reveal his glory. Okay, and I've given you a couple of references here. I looked up 51:6 in Isaiah. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look on the earth beneath, for the heavens will vanish away like smoke. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Basically, princes and judges will be brought down low and even killed. And he talks about them planted. They won't take root. They'll wither. They'll be blown away. The whirlwind will take them away. So being kind of rough on people, isn't he? Verse 25, he directly asks somebody to reveal his evil. That's an impossibility. Okay. But Isaiah is challenging his fellow Israelites to tell him which of these idols or which of these kings is his greatest God. Okay. He's telling him about his holiness. He's separated from his creation right now because of the special nature of his character. That is, he is morally perfect, and he is also transcendent. He is not of this world. He is outside our creation, even though it's his creation. He does point out that at some point he's going to share his character with his people, as Isaiah pointed out in Isaiah 4:3-4, and he will point out God's plan of transcendence in 62. These things in 26, it refers to heavenly bodies. Okay, and why is Isaiah bringing this up? And this is kind of to your point, Steve. Judah is in Babylonian captivity, and they will be for another 150 years. Babylonians believed the stars and the planets were visual representations of the gods. Okay, they thought that they had them pegged. Okay, they didn't know them all. They didn't name them all, but they named as many as they could. The temptation for the Canaanites in their captivity would be to worship these gods over time. Okay, so Isaiah wants them to know that these stars, and he refers to them as their host and by numbers, which means large numbers of them, are not self-existing. And this we've already talked about. They were brought into existence at some time by the Lord, and he knows each by name. Okay, does that flesh out what we were talking about a little bit?
Yeah, and it just comes back with what you said earlier. Why does God hate idols so much? Because people are worshiping the creation, not the creator.
Exactly.
And God is a jealous God. We know that. He tells us that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why God hates idols so much.
Yeah. Why are you worshiping my creations?
Yes.
Instead of me? Yeah. Okay. The nature of God and transcendence. I may have a little trouble with this concept, but somebody can help me. Okay. And since I had a little trouble with this concept, I just stole blatantly from John Oswalt, who wrote this commentary. Okay, let me read it for you. Isaiah has insisted on the absolute transcendence of God. He is not part of the cosmos in any way, and the cosmos is not part of him. But to carry that line to its logical conclusion, as Aristotle did, is to end with a passionless, colorless force as the source of everything. It is to say that personality is an accident in time. Isaiah doesn't go that way. He won't go that way. He insists on transcendence, but leaves no doubt that the transcendent is a person with all that means. And he makes the point, with all that is said and done, the combination of these two may be Israel's greatest contribution to human thought. And I thought that was very impactful to me. I think when we understand who God is and the nature of his being, it helps us understand everything, how he thinks, how he works, what's going to happen in the end times. We will be with him. Anyway, does that leave anybody in a quandary? No? Okay. I read it several times, and I went and looked up transcendence and tried to make sure I understood it. So, Isaiah 40, 27 through 31. Somebody want to read that?
Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel? My way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint.
Yeah. Those last 31 is just beautiful.
Yeah.
So, what he's referring to here, why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord. In other words, the Lord doesn't see what he's doing, and my claim is passed over by my God. He's saying, like, this is what, Barry, I think you brought this point up. Why aren't you fixing this situation? Mm-hmm. Why are you forgetting me, God? And then God's saying, have you not known? Have you not heard? I've told you, I'm the creator, the Lord. I'm it, and I don't ever faint and grow weary. I'm always on the case. So, in these 5 verses, Isaiah answers his initial question: why doesn't God act to right this situation? To Jan's point, in light of what I've told you, how can you believe God's ignoring you? God has his own timetable and no limitations. He's working, and you can count on him. He's always working, but he might not do it in your timetable, okay, or the way you think it should be done, okay. Verse 27, God knows about your sins, but he also knows the great plans that he has for you. He's forgiven those sins if you believe in him. So, verse 27, you got to understand that God rightly administrates all matters. He will not do anything that's unfair, inappropriate, untrue, and he considers all the details that you can't possibly consider.
And I think that goes back to your focus on transcendence, because what came to my mind was the first chapter of Colossians. All things were made by him and for him, and through him all things hold together. Mm-hmm. Well, that's transcendence. Mm-hmm. He is in all things, but he also holds all things together and is above all things as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the concept. It feels like he's trying to get across to to people of, you really don't understand the context of who I am. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think Isaiah is trying to say here, or God's trying to say.
Yeah. And you got to remember, as we go through this, he's preaching to Israel, trying to get them to understand all this. 40 and 41 are all Isaiah, with some little sidebars of God speaking in there. But that's an excellent point. And he's trying to get them to understand that God is in control, and he's going to 27 through 31. He talks about God's dependability. He's tireless and unfathomably intelligent and wise. Creation begins to decay by design because of sin the moment it is created. But God never changes. God never diminishes. God never decays. He will always be there, and he will always be intelligent, wise, and tireless. The creator is outside creation. That's a point that Isaiah is making here, and to your point. Okay, full grasp of God's purposes is beyond our understanding. As humans, we can't understand it, but we may know much of him through Scripture. We cannot know him totally, but we can know him through Scripture. Okay, verse 29, God has excess amounts of energy and he will impart it to those who need it. If you need it to do his work and his will, he will give it to you. Okay. Verse 30 and 31, those who wait upon the Lord. And he's going to differentiate between those who wait upon the Lord and those who don't in the next chapter. But we hear this this phrase all the time, wait upon the Lord. You got to expect God to work and wait in expectation that God will move. And that's all part of the time thing too. You know, it's done in his time.
And expect that it won't be the way you think it's going to be.
Probably not.
We're
Almost never. I can't tell you how many times a day now that I'm worried about something, all of a sudden it resolves itself, and I go, "Oh, thank you, Lord." I couldn't figure out how to do that, and I'm starting to come to that point in my life where I realize I don't need to worry because God's going to take care of it. You know, He expects me to put some effort in and follow Him, but He's going to take care of it if it's too much for me. Okay, Isaiah chapter 41. This is His promise to His servants that He will help. God summons the nations to judgment in 41:1. He says, He commands their silence. That's a sign that judgment's about to occur. Let them draw near and let them speak, underlines a different audience. He's talking to people, and he's talking to people he doesn't believe will wait on the Lord versus those who will. Some will, some won't. Okay. Interesting here, God here, as always, chooses to reveal himself in human history. Other gods have battles in the heavens, or they, have Clash of Titans or something like that. God reveals himself through human history. Okay. Cyrus the Mede is used by God. God lets him conquer all these nations in order to facilitate the Babylonian captivity ending and the Jews being allowed to go back home. Okay. King Cyrus of the Babylonians, I said Babylonians, he was a Mede, I'm sorry. He conquers the nations from Asia Minor to Lydia. He's given the nations by God's will to ransom Israel. Isaiah is prophesying about Cyrus the Mede in 538 BC, which was when the captivity ended, from his time of 760 to 673 BC. Okay, so he's looking forward to 150 or so years. Okay. Who in righteousness has he been called to his feet? Cyrus is not a tyrant. I read a little bit on Cyrus. Cyrus, when he conquered a land, he allowed the gods to remain. He was fairly lax in punishment compared to most kings of the time. So he was a little bit. He was a nice guy by those time standards. Okay, he was a worthy ruler, but he wasn't. He knew who God was. He referenced him when he let the Jews go, but he didn't really have a relationship with the one true God. Okay. Who pursued them and passed safely? The Medes suffered virtually no casualties in all these wars. So God was at hand there. Okay. He will not go on a path with his feet. And this refers to the fact the Medes may have built roads over areas that previously would have provided natural barriers to, say, the Assyrians and the Babylonians. So they used their own skills and maybe God's help to get into these areas and conquer them. The Syrians and Babylonians counted on natural barriers for their safety, and somehow the Medes quickly and effectively overpassed those. Okay, Isaiah 41, 4-7, God versus the idols. Somebody want to read that?
Who has done this and carried it through, calling forth the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, with the first of them, and with the last, I am He. The islands have seen it and fear. The ends of the earth tremble. They approach and come forward. They help each other and say to their companions, be strong. The metal worker encourages the goldsmith, and the one who smooths with the hammer spurs on the one who strikes the anvil. One says of the welding, it is good. The other nails down the idol so it will not topple.
Okay. Yeah. If you're a god, do you have to have chains and pegs to keep you from toppling? He's being kind of sarcastic here, and he's pointing that out. So, yeah, a lot of this is going to be satire and sarcasm. So, verse 4 makes it clear who called Cyrus into his service, God. Verse 5 and 7. Isaiah just seems incredulous that the nations chose these idols over God, and that the Israelites, when things are getting bad, they're starting to turn toward idols. He just doesn't believe it. Okay. Again, how good of a God must you be if they have to use pegs and chains to keep you from falling over? Okay. Isaiah also seems to be making a point about how much effort goes into making idols. Wouldn't it be easier just to worship the already existing one true God?
Really?
People will go out of their way to ignore the truth sometime. Okay, Isaiah 41, 8 through 9. Somebody?
But you, Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen, you descendants of Abraham, my friend, I took you from the ends of the earth, from its farthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you.
He's going to promise that he's not going to cast off Israel, even if they've wandered off and worshipped idols. Okay, he's going to bring them back. Okay, they don't need to create idols in fear. It's their God who created this situation to get them out of Babylon. Okay, Israel's under the protection of God because they're his servant, like Moses and Abraham before them. And God had already taken the Israelites from exile into Canaan in Egypt when they were in Egypt. And despite their exile now in Babylon, they will not be forsaken. He'll bring them back to Canaan. That's what he's trying to tell them here. Fear not. Verse 10 through 14. Let me read it. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. And I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Behold, all those who are incensed against you, shall they be ashamed and disgraced? Shall they be as nothing? And to those who strive with you shall perish. You shall seek them and not find them. Those who contended with you, those who war against you, shall be as nothing, as a non-existent thing. For I, the Lord your God, will hold your right hand, saying, fear not, I will help you. Fear not, you worm Jacob, you men of Israel. I will help you, says the Lord, and your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. A lot of stuff in here. This is a lot, got a lot in it. Fear not, I am with you, and I will uphold you in my right hand. He's telling them, I'm here to help you. And it's going to be neat, because remember the right hand, because it's going to switch, but it's going to be an intentional switch. Okay. This is the same message that was given to Ahaz. Remember him? And he didn't believe it. Okay. Verses 11 and 12. All Israel's adversaries will be defeated, ashamed, humiliated, and disgraced. Okay. Verse 13. In 10, it speaks of God's powerful right hand, but he says now he will hold your right hand, meaning he will take his left hand and hold Israel's right hand, and his God's right hand will be a sword defending Israel. Okay, so that's a kind of neat symbology. It's a perfect image of the father defending his child. Okay, worm it just means men are finite and mortal. Actually, Redeemer makes his first appearance here in this book, so we all know what Redeemer means.
Verse 10 is also almost identical to what he told Joshua.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's almost, when you read that, it rings in your head as something you've heard many, many times. Okay. Verse 15, behold, I will make you a new threshing sledge with sharp teeth. You shall thresh the mountains and beat them small and make the hills like chaff.
Okay.
How many people know what a threshing sledge is? Better give them a picture. All it is a bunch of boards nailed together with a bunch of sharp points on the bottom, and they run around on the wheat, and it separates the kernels that can be used to make bread from the chaff, which is useless. So he's separating the useful people from the people who will not turn to him and everything. Okay. Isaiah 41, 17 through 20. The poor and needy seek water, but there is none. Their tongues will fail for thirst. I, the Lord, will hear them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers in desolate heights and fountains in the midst of valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar and the acacia tree, the myrtle and the oil tree. I will set up in the desert the cypress tree and the pine and the box tree together, that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of the Lord has done this, and the Holy One of Israel has created it. He's going to give them all these blessings, and he's going to give them to them abundantly in order to show who he is. Okay. Poor and needy need water, physical and spiritual. The Lord promises to provide in abundance, you can see. Verse 18, he will do so super abundantly. Verse 19, God will plant masses of trees to be fed by the new water. There's 7 different types. Anything special about the number 7? Okay.
Number.
Yeah, the number of holiness, right? Verses 20, the Lord is doing this so Israel will see and hear and have no doubts the Lord is the source of it. Okay, and I'm going to read this here in a minute. Isaiah 41, 21 through 29. And this is an indictment to the people of Israel concerning their worship of idols. Those things you see in the picture are actually faces, and they are Israeli, Canaanite, I believe, depictions of God.
Ew, not so good.
Not so good. They just found these recently, so that's a conjecture. What I thought, you know, it's hard to see a face in there to me. But let me try to read this as I think Isaiah would have to the Israeli people. And I'm going to do 21 through 29, which will bring us close to the end. Present your case, says the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons, says the King of Jacob. Let them bring forth and show what will happen. Let them show the former things, what they were, that we may consider them and know the latter end of them. Show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that you are gods. Yes, do good or evil. Do something, do anything, that we may be dismayed and see it together. Indeed, you are nothing, and your work is nothing. He who chooses you is an abomination. I have raised up one from the north, Cyrus, and he shall come. From the rising of the sun, he shall call my name, and he shall come against princes as though mortar, as the potter treads clay. And who has declared from the beginning that we may know, in former times that we may say, he is righteous? Surely there is no one who shows. Surely there is no one who declares. Surely there is no one who hears your words. The first time I said to Zion, look, there they are, and I will give to Jerusalem to one who brings good tidings, Isaiah. For I looked, and there was no man. I looked among them, but there was no counselor, who, when I asked of them, could answer a word. Indeed, they are all worthless. Their works are nothing. Their molded images are wind and confusion. You talk about that. So he was being derisive, okay? And he was telling them everything that you believe, if you don't believe in God, is worthless. Okay, Isaiah 41, 21 through 29. I just put down a few thoughts here. The audience is Israel, not the idols. Okay, he sounds like he's shouting at the idols, but he's telling Israel, show me these things work, you know? Okay, verse 21, King of Jacob is a special relationship with God and Israel. Okay, to bring your question, Don. The former things and know the latter end of them. Tell us what you've told us formerly and you predicted and how that prediction panned out. Tell me, was there any truth to your prophecies and predictions? Basically, tell us what you predicted and what the outcome was. Okay, verse 22, or declare things to come. Open your mouth, speak, and prophesy. Okay, tell us, and we'll base it on that. Okay, verse 23, do good or evil. Do something, do anything that will indicate that you live and can do anything. In other words, idols, do something. Show us your stuff. Okay. Verse 24, you are nothing, your works are nothing, non-existent, and anyone who worships you is an abomination, an object of revulsion. He's speaking about the other. Verse 25, Cyrus will be raised from the north, and the Lord will use him to crush the nations. Cyrus will call on the Lord when he releases the exiles, but he doesn't really have a relationship with God. Verse 26, which one of you idle clowns predicted Cyrus coming? Nobody? Nobody? That's what I thought. Okay. Okay, verse 27, they refer to the former things and things to come. The one who brings good tidings is Isaiah. Okay, in verses 28 and 29, the nations have no one and nothing to recommend them, neither understand nor faith. So you could have read this and not had any of that explanation and understood it, you know, but I think it's just important to do that. And I'm done. Takeaways are worship God and not the other thing, not the world. Okay. And he's telling them that right now. He will always be there to help you. He will always lift you up. He will give you strength. the material things of the world are not important. And I think everybody in this room knows that, but we all find ourselves looking to the material world sometimes way more than we should, and to other people rather than to God. So with that,
Amen.
Thank you.
thank you.